Hey, everybody, it's Tony George. Welcome to Tony's Time. My good buddy, you know him, you love him. Indian Cowboy Arun Shiva is with us here today, and we're talking NFL Week 2. And before we get to that, just briefly, we've already got one game in the books this week, Arun. Last night, the Cleveland Browns did not cover the number, which plays into a system I'm going to highlight later. Although maybe they probably should have. But at the end of the day, week 1 in the books, week 2 started, but week 1, a few surprises. I know half the survivor pool here in Las Vegas at Circa went out with the Indianapolis Colts and the Philadelphia Eagles. Those were survivor picks straight up. And both of them lost in ugly fashion. But your big, I guess maybe your biggest takeaway from week 1 in the NFL.
Well, I mean, I think that it's disappointing as far as the Phillip Rivers and the Frank Reich combo so far in Indianapolis, and Marlon Mack, went down with that season-ending injury. But Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin is going to get to play, and he's going to ball out. He had 2,000-yard seasons for them. I actually think the Colts, and I know we're jumping right into it, I think the Colts, this is a must-win for them. A new quarterback, a new coach. I mean, the coach that wanted to bring him in with that offensive line. Rivers threw for like 300 plus yards. Those two interceptions. Minshew, can you believe it or not? He threw for 175 yards and 3 touchdowns, and they win the game. It's ridiculous. So I think the Colts are going to really bounce back this week. I think that's why they're favored over Minnesota, because Minnesota's DBs aren't that great. So, the Colts kind of disappointed me week 1. The Falcons, being a Falcons fan, is just disappointing. They always score points, but they never seem to know how to win a game, I think the Cardinals might be real, I think beating San Fran, which is a big deal. I think Jimmy, in his defense, there were a lot of wide receivers that were out. So, he's got a lot of new faces and stuff. We kind of expected the Saints to do well against the Bucs. You know what I mean? Because it's going to take some time for Tom to do well. And I've always believed that Belichick was more the reason why they were successful than Brady. I'm not saying Brady's the GOAT, but Belichick's also the GOAT. So now it's GOAT versus GOAT. Which one is GOATer? You know what I mean? Which one is big? I've always thought, and this is proving that because Belichick can win with a lot of different quarterbacks. So, and I'm disappointed for the Lions, man. I like the Lions as a team. They were up 20-6, and then 3 cornerbacks get injured, and Mitchell Trubisky saves his job. I cannot stand Mitchell Trubisky. I think he's garbage. But they have such a good coaching staff in Chicago that they seem to always put him in the right position. Happy for the Washington football team. And I think the Seattle Seahawks, Russell Wilson just might be the MVP this year. He's 4 touchdowns right away. Aaron Rodgers knows that Jordan Love is behind him, so he decides to show up, and then pound the Vikings. And, it should be interesting to see that Patriots defense kind of carry the day. I'll end on this. I think the Patriots this year are going to be like the Ravens from when they had Ray Lewis. A lot of defense, just score enough points type of thing. So who knows? They might have a shot.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about Cam Newton last week. Look, you put up 21 points at home against Miami, and Fitzmagic did what Fitzmagic also does, and that's throw picks. He threw one in the end zone late in the game to save the cover, and I think scoring 21 points, and let's just talk about it. Seattle at home right now, and I'll pull up my Don Best current odds here, but Seattle at home right now is a favorite of I got my baseball up instead of my NFL, but they're a favorite over, and I believe this is a Sunday night game, and we could just talk about it real quick.
Yeah, it's like 4, I think, -4.
Yeah,
minus
4 and the total 45. I know that Atlanta doesn't play any defense, but Wilson, I agree. Every year he should be in the top 3 of the MVP of the league. He's just a fantastic quarterback, a fantastic playmaker, never gets rattled, and looked like just looked unbelievable last week against Atlanta. He throws maybe one of the highest arcing, prettiest deep balls in the NFL, and he's got some receivers run underneath of it. I don't think that obviously, I think the biggest thing in this game is the home field, which usually Seattle relies on a lot for that home field. And they're not going to have that advantage this year. This is a coast-to-coast flight. There's a long road trip for New England, but I can't see New England going in here and putting up 17 to 20 points and winning this game or covering the spread the way Seattle played offensively. And maybe we're going to find out, as you said, the GOAT. Belichick's going to have to coach a hell of a game in this one, along with Josh McDaniels, in order to come up with a way to stop both Seattle and a running quarterback, because Wilson could take off at any point in time and go for 25. He can move the chains on 3rd and 6 when either you got busted coverages for slant routes or something out in the flat isn't open. He can kill you. This is going to be a real interesting game here. You're going to find out a lot about both these teams. I know week 1, we're trying to figure out and find out something about some teams, and headed into this week, there's still question marks. And the question marks is that Seattle offense as good as they were against Atlanta? And is the defense of the Patriots as good, as they were against Miami? A lot of question marks in this game, Arun.
Yeah, I think, if I had to lean, and the public is on Seattle, they're not too impressed by New England's win over Miami. But, Bill Belichick as a dog is always a good thing. You know what I mean? And interestingly enough is, getting 4, and if it goes to 4.5 by game time out of a total of 45, that's like getting 10% of the points before the game starts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like getting a 10% discount. All right, so I've got 4 or 4.5 on a total of 45. If it's 4.5, I've got about 10% of the points. And if I'm the Patriots, I guess what I do is I just run the ball a lot, keep the ball out of the hands of Russell Wilson, which is exactly what the Chargers will have to do this week, against the Chiefs, because can't give the Chiefs the ball, and the Chargers' strength is their defensive line between Boza and those boys up front. So I think, I think it's going to be a drag-out game. Whenever the Patriots face these great offenses, I think what they're going to do is just hold on to the ball as long as they can, frustrate the other offense, and then have their defense rested to make the stops they need to make.
Yeah. Interesting, Belichick, when he gets in big games, you look over the years in big games, it wasn't Tom Brady. It was a running game that won those big games for him. Belichick likes he'll go up to McDaniels, say, pound the rock, figure out a way to do it. Whether it's misdirection or whatever you got to do, pound the rock. Remember all those games he used to play against Peyton Manning? It's going to be Brady versus Manning. Well, it was Brady. It wasn't Brady versus Manning. It was Manning versus New England's running game and keeping him off the field. And I think that's probably going to be his recipe, which you may play into the under a little bit too here if you want to look at it that way. The only way that I think that New England can win or even cover this spread is if the game stays under. I can tell you that much right now, just off the top of my head. Interesting statistic here, week 2 underdogs against a favored team that lost the week before. This is just a trend I look at, which brings in some of the games. But week 2 underdogs against a favored team that lost the week before last year in week 2 was 5-1 against the spread. The last 3 years, 14-7 against the spread. And right now in week 2, it's 1-0 against the spread, because that was Cincinnati last night that fell into that category. And if you take a look at the teams in play on this, which is why I'm bringing this up, these are the teams that are in play for this trend that's been pretty solid. Rams, Jets, Minnesota, Atlanta, Carolina, Jacksonville. And let's just start with the Rams. The whole world was on Dallas last week. I put out a free play video on Dallas. I wasn't sold on Goff. He hangs on to the ball too long. I thought Dallas had a good pass rush. Well, they've trained Goff to get rid of that ball in less than 2 seconds now. And it played out well for them. Obviously, their defense played well. And obviously, Philadelphia, one of the most disappointing losses of anybody last week. They were dominated after the first quarter and a half, pretty much, by Washington. 8 sacks, Arun. And so that raises everybody's eyebrows here, because this is one of the biggest line movers there was. Philly was laying 4 on the futures in this game. And now it's down to 1 to even a pick 'em at places. So if you like Philadelphia, you're definitely catching some value. And is this one of those games, I'm going to ask you, and I'll sit back and get your feedback. Is this one of those games where you go, You know what? One of the number one cardinal sins in handicapping the NFL or betting the NFL is never overreact to what you saw the week before. And what we saw the week before was Philadelphia getting absolutely decimated up front. They did have injuries. They got some guys coming back, and their defensive line in the second half got shredded as well. Do you how much stock do you put in the fact, number one is the Rams looked better than expected against the Cowboys, and Philadelphia looked like a dog turd in a cantaloupe patch last week against the Washington football team. This is an interesting game here.
Yeah, what's interesting is the Rams ran the ball 32 times, at least in that game, including Akers and their running tandem that they have with Brown, et cetera. So they were able to kind of keep that potent Dallas offense off the field. I think Philly wins this game, and I think it's because, first of all, Wentz isn't going to get sacked 8 times. Second of all,
No.
Washington, I think Haskins passed for 160 yards or something to that effect. I mean, it's ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, and you end up winning that game. And they had this emotional thing with, with Ron Rivera and the cancer and the team ball and halftime and blah, blah, blah. Win one for the Gipper, even though it's the first game of the season. So this was, I think that kind of played into it too. And I think at some point, Jalen Hurts is in the wings too, and not like he's not like going to take over Carson Wentz, but it's the new tradition of the NFL to have like a decent backup to put pressure on the quarterback, right? In this case, for Aaron Rodgers, that's why he showed up with Jordan Love. You can even talk about Tyrod Taylor and Herbert, in LA. Philly can't start 0-2. You know what I mean? They just, because this is the same thing, especially with that Philly press and, the media in Philadelphia will jump all over this team if they end up doing that. And plus, the Rams, they're pretty predictable, right? You have Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, and that's pretty much it. They're pretty predictable. I wasn't that impressed with the Rams. The public, I can tell you the book is rooting for the Eagles because everybody thinks the Rams, they just beat the Cowboys and they're going to be awesome. Yeah. But we all know we can't trust Goff. And Wentz, Wentz is funny, right? When you expect Philadelphia to play well, they never play well. When you expect Philadelphia to play horribly, they play well. Like they can beat anybody, but they can lose to anybody. So it's almost like if they're a favorite, fade them. If they're a dog, take them.
Yep. And I'll tell everybody out there watching the video that Philadelphia is one of my 5 Circa picks this week. I am taking Philly in the Circa contest. I went 3-2 last week there. Hope for a little better roll than that. Be sure, by the way, and look above our beautiful faces here on this video, and you'll see get a free $60 account with Doc Sports. There's a link in the description below. Be sure and get over to Doc's this weekend. Not only can you get a free $60 and utilize that, daily packages over there are $30. We have 12 great handicappers, but about 95% of the stuff on the website's free. There's great free pick videos. I know I see he's got them out every day. I've got them out every day. Big name like Scott Spritzer's got them out. Vernon Croy, he's got a pretty girl on his videos, so you'll probably want to gravitate towards those versus our ugly mugs. But nonetheless, some great content over there, folks. So be sure to get over to Doc Sports this weekend. Let me ask you a question. Pardon me. This even chokes me up a little bit. What the hell is Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers doing laying 8.5 or 9 to anybody? That's my question, Arun.
That's a good question. Yeah, I think this is what you talked about earlier. It's right, this overreaction, right? Oh my God, the Bucs lost. They're gonna kill the poor Panthers. The Panthers didn't look that bad. They looked pretty good against Vegas, and it's nice to see the Panthers scoring points. They dropped 30 on Las Vegas, and they had a chance near the end of that game. But there was some clock mismanagement issues by Coach Rule. It's interesting, in his post-game press conference, he made a statement. He goes, "We're going to be a very good football team very soon." I mean, for just after one game, he feels pretty good about his team. That says a lot, This team, in the beginning of the year, I wasn't sure if they were going to tank for Trevor Lawrence,
right,
or if they were going to actually go out there and play football. But looks like this team is fine playing football. And, and they're tossing the ball. See, the thing with Cam Newton is he never trusted those receivers fully, and Teddy's slinging it to all these receivers on both ends. They're getting a lot of touches. You got McCaffrey. Yeah, I don't see why. And don't get me wrong, I think the Bucs will win this game. But do they cover 8.5? I mean, if you're Carolina, don't you get excited to play Tom Brady? And if you're Tom Brady, do you get excited to play Carolina after you lost to the Saints? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's look, one thing I always look at, one of the first things, and McCaffrey is one of the runnings in the NFL, top 3. And Carolina, and last time I checked, Tampa Bay, one thing last year, and I'll say it again this year, they can't stop Grandma off the shop trying to tackle her. And McCaffrey's going to present is back. Good quarter last week at wide receiver. Down the ball. I think they definitely missed Luke Kuechly and Davis at linebacker. So Carolina, I think, has to resign themselves to the fact that we're going to have to score 24 to 28 points a game in order to have a winning record this year. And they're going to play. They're offensively, they're going to take some chances and do that. And by the way, Las Vegas is a pretty good football team. We talked about it last week on the show. Gruden's acquired a lot of talent since he's been there, either through the draft or through free agency. They got a hell of a running game, which provided them a lot of fireworks last week and set up Carr maybe to look a little better at quarterback than what he is because of the threat of the run they had. I think they had like $140 on the ground just with Jacobs. So, and one of your SEC boys, I know you're an SEC guy. This week here also as well, interesting to get your thoughts on the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are laying a big number against Denver. Denver suffered some injuries in that Monday Night Football game as well. You'll want to check that out. But I thought that Pittsburgh going on the road, laying almost a touchdown on Monday Night Football. Granted, it was the Giants. But at the end of the day, I thought they dominated that football game. I thought their defense looked good. And I'm concerned about Fangio and his coaching approach. Looks like he kind of threw in the towel at the end of that game, mismanaged the clock, kind of looked like Jason Garrett, like a deer in the headlights there at the end of the game, so to speak. Your thoughts on the Steelers right now, because Big Ben looked pretty damn sharp. I know Connors is out at running back here, but I don't think Snell's anything to flush down the garbage disposal either. He's a pretty good running back here. You think Pitt keeps rolling in this one? That's a big number.
Yeah, I think Pitt wins, but I like Denver to probably cover. But I think Pitt wins, and I'm happy for Pittsburgh, and I'm happy for Big Ben. He's recommitted himself. He's lost some weight. He's come. I think it's his 17th year, if I'm not mistaken. So he's really come back, and he's kind of dedicated himself. And they're always going to have a great defense because of Tomlin. And the receiving game looks pretty good, and I think. And at the end of the day, it is the Giants. However, the Broncos, the Titans kicker missed 4 field goals, right? I mean, he's going to the Hall of Fame at the end of the day, but he missed 4 field goals. And so they could have won that game by maybe 8-11, but the Broncos had a chance to win that game late and they could have won outright. And Drew Lock, I just continue, and I think as he develops more of a relationship with Judy and all of those other receivers that they have out there, I think Phillip Lindsay might be banged up for this game, but they should have enough of a running game. That defense is actually pretty good too for the Broncos to hold. Let's say that he makes 2 more field goals, even though they scored 16 points. At the end of the day, for them to hold him to 22 points is still pretty good. Tennessee is still a really good offense, with Tannehill and the receivers of Corey Davis and Brown and obviously with Derrick Henry. And you still got to stop the guy. And they did. Yeah. They lined up and they stopped him. And what is this? On a total, the total was low too, right? On a total of 40.5, you're getting 7 points. I mean, that's not bad at all. I'm not saying Denver wins, though. Would it really shock you to see Pittsburgh lay an egg after winning big? It's something very Pittsburgh to do, So yeah, I actually kind of lean on Denver there. But I like Pittsburgh, and I think they do go to the playoffs this year for sure, as long as Big Ben stays healthy.
Yeah, I'll guarantee you one thing: the Pittsburgh Steelers the San Francisco 49ers, the Kansas City Chiefs. Those three are going to be tops in the teaser pools all over the planet this week, getting them off 7 or 6 and through 3. And last week I had Philadelphia in a teaser.
The Ravens, right?
Ravens is another one, which is interesting to me. I did a rapid fire free play for Docs, and I did take Houston in that game. I think this is one of those you better be careful about the overreaction to week 1. Baltimore had some payback in mind for Cleveland going in there and rolling them the year before in their own house. You had a brand new coaching staff on the road for the first time. You saw Cleveland's offense in action last night with a 1-2 punch at running back that they couldn't do against Baltimore. But so you're thinking, well, they're just going to go down there and roll Houston because Kansas City put Houston over their knee and just spanked the piss out of them. Well, guess what? Kansas City's the best team in the NFL. They're also the reigning world champions. They also have a running game. They also beat them by double digits again with Patrick Mahomes only having 211 yards throwing the ball because they were able to run the football. And with added time to prepare here and catching 7 at home, and I know O'Brien's not a great coach, and I know that Harbaugh is, but at the end of the day here, we still got Deshaun Watson. We got some weapons on offense and a Houston team that's got their tail between their legs and kind of pissed off, going to have their ears pinned back. I think it's going to be a tough win. I think Baltimore can go down there and get the win. I think it's going to be tougher than a lot of the people think, Arun.
Yeah, obviously if Houston loses this game, they start 0-2. And what a difficult schedule, right? They open up against the Chiefs and the Ravens, basically 2 contenders.
Yeah.
So it's a brutal schedule to start off with, unfortunate for them. I think, and especially if they lose this game, this could be one of those teams that you start. If they lose this game straight up, I think it's a team that you have to start backing as they go into divisional contests because they're going to start wanting to win those games or else they're out of the playoffs, right? So I think that at the end of the day, I also lean on Houston too, by the way. I think that's a really, really sharp play. And Baltimore can go in and destroy some teams, but Houston, Bill O'Brien is a defensive-minded coach to begin with, and I think he'll have a good scheme. And the other thing is those receivers are going to get more used to Watson, right? I think Randall Cobb is going to get more touches now. I think he had that nice relationship with Fuller. They didn't use Cobb at all well the previous game. So I think they'll start getting those receivers more touches. I think that the running game actually looked pretty good against KC. They rushed over 100 yards. I think Cleveland, you're right. They were a mess going into that Baltimore game. Nothing was in sync. I think that coaching staff was kind of in over its head in the beginning. I think this will be one of those games where Houston probably loses by 4-6.
There you go, folks. And by the way, speaking about the kicking game, last week, this affects spreads and it affects teasers. We had 19 missed field goals in week 1 in the NFL and numerous missed extra points, last week. So kind of affects those key numbers from time to time. I guess in closing, just one more comment I'll get. Be sure and get over to Docs. Take advantage of that free $60. College and pro football, NBA playoffs going on. All kinds of great Stanley Cup finals. We got I know Arun, I'm doing it, WNBA. Arun does a hell of a job at WNBA. I got beat up last night in WNBA. I laid it with Minnesota, but nonetheless, be sure and get over, take advantage of that free $60. Quickly, your comment on this particular game. Is Aaron Rodgers really this good still? And second of all, at the end of the day, bear in mind that Green Bay always kind of has their way with Minnesota, and Detroit kind of always has their way with Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay. They're 6-0 against the spread the last 6 times. They haven't covered a spread against the Detroit Lions since the first game of 2017, Arun, and they're laying 6 here at home. Looks real easy just to pick up the mantra here and just lay the 6 with Rodgers, who looked invincible last week against the Lions, who, grabbed defeat from the jaws of victory once again.
Yeah, I think it's really smart that you bring this up because everybody and their mom is on Green Bay at home. And I think you have to be. Why is it only 6? Why are
Yeah,
the Tennessee Titans 8.5 against the Jaguars off of, as they come off of a loss, and Green Bay looking so good against Minnesota of all people, who's a good team on the road, winning by double digits and laying 6 to the Lions? Just
yeah,
seems really fishy. And I'm not saying the public doesn't win, but I think Minnesota had 2 important defensive backs that were just kind of banged up. So
yeah,
Rodgers picked on. And the Lions also had a couple defensive backs that are out, but they might get them back by this game. So we'll see. But in the Lions, first of all, they can run the ball with Adrian Peterson. I think Minnesota's
yeah,
passing game isn't very good with Thielen, and Stafford has some real receivers. He's got a decent set of receivers between Amendola. Um, he's able to. I think he had over 300 yards last game too. So they honestly, Detroit should be 1-0, and it's a shame that they were up literally 23-6 going into that game, into the
yeah,
fourth quarter. So it's super frustrating. But Stafford threw for 288. He only got sacked once, right? This team didn't fumble the ball. They were 2 for 5 in the red zone, so they get a couple more scores. They really moved the ball well, and I think if I had to pick a side, and I think this will move to. By the way, the line hasn't moved yet either. You notice that it's still at
yeah, and
6,
a ton of money on Green Bay.
and it's not budging. So,
Yeah.
if I had to take a lean, I would say it wouldn't be for a lot of money. I would stay away. But if I had to take something, I would take the Lions plus the points.
Yeah, the Lions right now are between my 5th and 6th pick in the Circa contest. Just to let you know, I'm seriously considering them. And of course, talking about teasers, again, Green Bay is going to be one of those teams that's going to be on the big teaser list here. Detroit played a lot better than what the final score indicated. Stefanoski, I believe how you pronounce his name at tight end, is an absolute stud for Stafford or whatever his name is. Starts with an H. I can't think.
Hawkinson, yeah.
Hawkinson, yeah, I was thinking of the head coach for Cleveland, but nonetheless, they got a good tight end there. AP's a good running back, and bear in mind also, as you mentioned, offensively, Minnesota was hit and miss at best last week. They really missed Diggs at wide receiver big time. That really opened up Thielen, and it really changed the dynamic of their passing game.
They're not very good passing teams.
Yeah, I know.
They've become one-dimensional.
Yeah, I've never been a big Cousins fan, and Cook had an okay game, but he's a dangerous player. But bear in mind also, as you mentioned, they were down 2 cover corners in that football game against arguably one of the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. That definitely wanted to come out and make a statement and let everybody know Jordan Love may be in the wings, but I'm sure Brett Favre called him up and said, "Hey, Aaron, how do you feel about that? They drafted somebody when you're kicking butt and taking names." This stings a little bit, doesn't it? But nonetheless, folks, hey, listen, that's the show this week. Get over to Doc Sports, get yourself some winners. By the way, I wanted to thank Arun. You gave everybody the women's winner in the U.S. Open tennis last week right here on the show. Congratulations on that, my friend. And hope you have a great weekend in football, baseball, whatever your flavor of the day is. We got it for you at DocSports.com. For Indian Cowboy, I'm Tony George. Thanks for tuning in.